Hi, I'm Nick Palmisciano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. The Trump administration, with a little help from Big Tobacco, announced plans to ban flavored e-cigarettes this month and a crackdown on vaping. This move comes in reaction to an increase in respiratory-related illness associated with vaping, as well as 6 deaths that may have resulted from contaminated smoke. Now, I think vaping is stupid, but are we really going to get into the banning business now? 6 deaths? In the United States, every year, 480,000 people die from cigarettes. 300,000 people die from obesity. 88,000 people die from alcohol. But we're gonna freak out over 6 people dying from vaping? Newsflash, all this stuff is stupid and it's all bad for us. But at least for a little while longer, this is a free country. And if we want to poison ourselves, then by God, that's our right as Americans. The next round of Democratic debates happened this Thursday. But before we provide you with our scintillating analysis, let's take a moment for those of us that weren't able to attend. Bill de Blasio. Jay Inslee. John Delaney. John Hickenlooper. Kirsten Gillibrand. Steve Bullock. Tim the Axe Ryan. Marianne Williamson. Michael Bennett. And Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard's hamstrings. And Tulsi Gabbard. And now to the debates. This was probably the ugliest debate thus far, with almost every candidate vowing to do something on day one that is not aligned in any way, shape, or form with the powers of the president, but rather with the powers of absolute monarch. As always, here are the performances of the candidates from worst to best. Julian Castro, how the mighty have fallen. Castro was a standout in the first debate, but whether it was out of desperation to rise in the polls or to try to get himself in line for a vice presidency, he went for the jugular this time in a bad way against Joe Biden. It was reminiscent of Kamala Harris trying to take out Biden in the second debate by calling him a racist. Instead, Castro went after Biden's age, alluding to the fact that he forgot things and that perhaps he wasn't the man that he once was. It didn't play well, he looked like a dick, and Biden held his own. Castro's best moment was when he reminded Mayor Buttigieg that this was a debate and they were supposed to argue and not just be nice to each other. I chuckled, I admit it. Pete Buttigieg. If you just read a transcript of the debates, you'd think he did pretty well. As always, his plans were well thought out, calm, and rational. He espoused concern over the president's trade policy with China and explained how he would work it differently. On paper, again, a very solid performance. The problem was that he came off even weaker than he has in the past. He got stepped on more often, and the moderators in this debate were a lot less interested in his quirkiness than other moderators have been in the past. He didn't fight for time, and the one time he tried to dig in on something, it was essentially to implore the other candidates not to be mean to each other and to try to stay as a unified Democratic Party. He was extremely forgettable on stage and didn't really appeal to the aggressive, let's get Trump progressives, or the, for the love of God, let's just get to 270 moderates. His strongest moment was when he touched on the challenges and fears of coming out gay, especially as a politician, because it showed a rare human side that the robotic mayor rarely shows. Bernie Sanders. Bernie really needed a throat lozenge this week. Honest to God, I don't think I heard a single thing that he said. Though his numbers are decent, the other candidates have done a really good job of framing him as the past, constantly thanking him for carrying the torch. He still has a strong following, but he hasn't had the kind of breakout performance that's going to inspire new voters to join his team. Biden and KLOBUCHAR also did an excellent job picking apart his healthcare policies, and his responses were hardly presidential and came out a lot more like grumpy old man. Kamala Harris. I don't think I've cringed harder in my life than when Kamala Harris looked Joe Biden in the eye and said, how about instead of saying, no, we can't, we say, yes, we can. She then actually looked out into the crowd because she was expecting like cheering or laughing or something, and it never came. It was so cringe, it hurt. It was so planned and so forced that I just desperately wanted people to start booing, and I was hoping one of those oldie time vaudeville guys would come out with that candy cane hook and just be like, rah! After that, she tried to come back into the center with some praise of former President Barack Obama, but I just don't see a pathway for her to get back into real contention. At this point, the best she can hope for is a VP slot unless something crazy happens. Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang started off this debate with some serious cringe, giving $12,000 a year to 10 people, ostensibly to show how his freedom dividend would work. In addition to probably violating some campaign finance laws, this was the last thing that a guy like Yang had to do at this moment, when his campaign was just starting to get steam and credibility. The rest of his performance was solid, but he may have shot himself in the foot and lost some momentum with this antic. Amy Klobuchar. Klobuchar had her best performance to date. She made it very clear that she wanted to be president for all Americans and not just half of America. She lit up both Bernie and Warren over the price structure and logistics of Medicare for all, and also let everyone know in no uncertain terms that she felt like it was inappropriate for the government to tell private citizens whether they could or could not use private insurance, regardless of whether there was a public option. She also deftly defended her career as a prosecutor, refuting all the accusations lobbed against her in a very believable way. I don't know if she can get her numbers to where they need to be in order for her to be in real contention for the presidency, but she'd be a perfect fit as a VP candidate for Biden. She is also someone that moderates looking to replace Trump can absolutely support. Elizabeth Warren. She didn't dominate the stage as she has in many of her other performances, but every time she did speak, she showed great command of policy. She is competing with Bernie and Beto as the most liberal candidates on stage, and she does so unabashedly. She still is the forerunner for Democrats that want to show up President Trump in the debates, as she's fiery, intelligent, and capable. I think she did well enough to hold her spot, but not necessarily to advance it. Cory Booker. Booker had his first good night. He was bold, in control, far better prepared than he has been in the past, and even funny at times. He sounded like he could be the leader of the free world for the first time in any debate, where he typically has just kind of looked like he was happy to be there. When asked about veganism and whether others should follow his example, he replied, no, and for those Spanish speakers out there, no, which was him mocking both himself as well as many other Democratic candidates that have opted to use Spanish during the debates. He also spoke at length about veterans' health in the VA and specifically got into details associated with women veterans and their specific challenges. I think if he had started at this level, he would be in the mix in a big way, but where we are right now, I think he's the front runner for VP status. Beto O'Rourke. Beto had his best performance by far this week, and it's hard for me to say that because I essentially believe nothing that the man believes. What he has done by energetically claiming that he is willing to remove weapons from all Americans against their will, violently if necessary, is give the other Democrats a lot of latitude to move left without moving all the way to Beto levels of left. Beto literally released a shirt minutes after the debate that read, "Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, which has to be the saddest thing that I have ever seen and is a significant increase in the violent speak that has started to really collect around the gun debates. But it resonated with his crowd, and the hour after the debate when he released that shirt, those shirt sales gave him the best hour of campaign fundraising that he's had thus far. He has no chance at the presidency. Not this year, not ever. But what he did do is just help out the Democratic Party by being the guy that is attracting all the incoming fire and staying in the headlines as the most progressive. He either took one for the team as part of a strategic vision, or El Paso moved him so much that he no longer cares about the election results and just wants to get his thoughts out there. Joe Biden, best performance of the night. He was reasonable, he understands the Constitution, and he actually believes in being president for the entire country. He didn't BS or try to placate people. While the rest of the field tripped over themselves racing towards the elimination of the energy industry, the elimination of the Second Amendment, and the mandating of government-run healthcare, Biden refused to bend to emotion and stayed the course. He didn't seem out to show Republicans or try to impose his will or get anyone. He just wants to beat Trump. He fended off a lot of attacks, many of which were under the belt, and stayed presidential throughout. He stands firmly in the top spot, and in a general election, I believe he will attract a lot of moderates that are unhappy with President Trump.
Tom Brady was 100% in, then 1,000% in, then 1,000,000% in, after finding out that Antonio Brown, Mr. Big Chest himself, signed to the New England Patriots. Did AB play 4D chess? Was this his plan all along? Who knows? What we do know for certain is that Nick, Rob, and myself were laughing maniacally as Thom cried in the corner after the 33-3 routing of the once glorious Pittsburgh Steelers. AB must have been watching with childlike glee, reminiscing of a time in 2007 when Randy Moss caught 23 touchdowns thrown by Tom Brady. Can he do the same? Will they finish 19-0 this year? Signs point to yes, however, week 1 is undeniably too early to decide. Stay tuned for more.
John Bolton resigned this week, and shortly thereafter, Trump said he fired him. Many had criticized Bolton for being a war hawk. Others had accused him of being a walrus in disguise. Some people believe that with Bolton gone, discourse with other countries will increase. As it stands right now, Bolton plans to move back to San Diego to be with his family.
This week, police shut down a 3,000-person game of hide-and-seek in an IKEA. Authorities got everybody out of the IKEA except for Karen, who found a great hiding spot in a TV cabinet on floor number 4. The Supreme Court has given a go-ahead for the Trump administration rule on asylum seeking. The rule basically says that anyone seeking asylum is not eligible if they didn't previously try to seek protection from any of the countries that they passed through in order to get to the U.S. Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor disagreed vehemently with the decision. Sotomayor stated that she felt that the administration was upending long-standing practices. With the new rule in effect, many asylum seekers will be ineligible having passed through a number of countries before. Supporters of the rule say it will help eliminate an overload of asylum requests and take the pressure off of immigration authorities. Many are still on the fence about it.
North Korea has expressed interest in renewed talks with the U.S. Simultaneously, North Korea has just been dropping bombs into the ocean over and over again without asking anybody's permission. North Korea's foreign minister, Cho Sun-hui, has said that the United States needs to bring some newness to the table and not just the same old request for denuclearization. Because after all, they want to nuke some people. So I'm not even sure what these talks are supposed to be about. Maybe Un just wants to hang.
Trump has suspended peace negotiations that were supposed to take place with the Taliban at Camp David. According to reports, the Taliban have claimed responsibility for a car bombing that killed 11 people, including 1 American. This is just the latest in ongoing attacks that have happened throughout the negotiations. Many have speculated that Trump is using the attack to slow or kill negotiations. He has lately received a lot of backlash saying that he's rushing the negotiations just to meet his campaign promise of bringing troops home. If rushed, the negotiations would end up benefiting the Taliban and leaving Afghanistan in disarray. Or the same. A military exit from the Middle East is riddled with complications and definitely isn't an overnight solution. Initially, Trump said that the talks were shelved and not completely Talibaned, but later he said that they're completely dead.
An Iranian woman captured international attention by setting herself on fire in front of a courthouse this week. 29-year-old Sahar Khodayari dressed as a man in order to go to a soccer game. Women, as you may know, are currently banned from watching soccer in Iran. She was discovered, arrested, and spent 2 days in jail. Later, she found out she could spend as much as 6 months in jail. Upon hearing this, she doused herself with gasoline, walked in front of the courthouse, and lit herself on fire. Iran has banned women at men's sporting events since 1979. Many have called for Iran to lift this ban because, you know, it's 2019. Others have stated, I can understand her doing this over Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, but soccer? That's dumb. Iranian media has given sparse coverage to Sahar's self-immolation. However, in other places, it's been a real hot topic.
An extrasolar planet, K2-18 Bravo, has been discovered to have water in its atmosphere. The Kepler mission, which was launched a decade ago, has discovered thousands of planets outside of our solar system. Now, scientists are pouring through data trying to determine what these systems look like, what they're composed of, and if they're candidates to host life. Scientists do this by looking at the spectra of its atmosphere as it transits its host star. We go now to Rich, who's going to explain what this means.
Thanks, Matt. Here's what's going on with this. Basically, scientists are just looking at what is being absorbed by the atmosphere, and in this case, hydrogen and oxygen are being absorbed by the atmosphere. So we know there's water there. How much water? Well, between 0.01% and 50% of the atmosphere. That's how much certainty we have. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Rich. That was scintillating. Still, it's a ways to go before we find ET on any of these planets.
A New Zealand man named Josh Thompson had the feeling he was going to get laid off at the end of the week. So he did what any of us would do in his position. He hired an emotional support clown to be there for the event. The clown stood there during the meeting. Making various balloon animals, squirting people with flowers, and doing other kinds of parlor tricks. Thompson said it was a little noisy at times, but everyone enjoyed the humor and he departed on good terms. Thompson has already secured new employment and his support clown has gone back to his home in the storm drain. And finally, in Florida girl news, a 17-year-old Florida woman has been arrested for hiring someone to kill her parents. Alyssa Hatcher is facing 2 counts of criminal solicitation after stealing her parents' debit card and running up charges for $1,500 to try to get them smoked. A witness of her attempted hitman hiring contacted the police and Alyssa was arrested. She admitted to trying to buy her parents' death and also cocaine. Her parents intend to press charges against their daughter. This is just more proof that while Florida men are absolutely crazy and willing to do anything, Florida women are downright evil. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and I just want to remind you that the party that is absolutely against stop and frisk laws as a gross violation of the Fourth Amendment is totally cool with sending armed men in the middle of the night to kick in your doors and steal your rifles.